Level 206, Improvisation. And this is part 10 of our lead guitar study, as we are now going to play lead guitar in traditional minor keys. And so back in Intermediate 2, you learned how to play lead guitar in traditional major keys. And so it is assumed that you understand all the techniques and theory required to do that. And so moving forward, we've set the stage in levels 201 through 205 to get you playing lead guitar in traditional minor keys. And to do that, we're going to need our minor scale and our minor pentatonic scale. And since our backing track has been written in key of A minor, we're going to need our A minor scale and our A minor pentatonic scale. And I posted those in this level as a review. You should already know these by now, but I've got them here just in case you need them. All 5 forms of our minor scale are listed here. Just remember, anywhere you put that red square becomes the name of that minor scale. Now, if you look carefully, you'll see that this is the same scale as your C major scale. So you're already familiar with this pattern. The C major scale started on this note right here. And you know that the relative minor of C is A minor. And that's why we call this the A minor scale. It's just a C major scale starting on the A note. Another observation, if you look carefully at your A minor scale, you'll notice that contained within it is your A minor pentatonic scale. All you're doing is removing the B and the F notes to get your A minor pentatonic scale. And those would be the 2nd and 6th scale degrees of the minor scale. So in short, a minor scale minus the 2nd and 6th scale degrees gives you a minor pentatonic scale. And that would be your 5-note version of a minor scale. And this is important because it keeps you from having to think of 2 completely different scales. They're basically the same thing. If you want to go into pentatonic, you'll know that that shape is contained over the top of the minor scale. That's less work for you. And here are all 5 forms of the minor pentatonic scale listed for your convenience, because you can forget, so this is a good opportunity for you to review those. And just as we talked about with Form 1 minor pentatonic scale fitting over the top of Form 1 minor, Form 2 minor pentatonic scale also fits over the top of Form 2 minor scale. Same thing with Form 3. The Form 3 minor pentatonic scale will fit over the top of Form 3 minor scale, and so on. So all these forms fit over the top of their correlating minor forms. Before we turn on the backing track, I want to go ahead and play through our pentatonic scale and our minor scale to get warmed up. And if you're going to use a pick, just go ahead and warm up with the pick. If you want to use index and middle, then warm up that way. Just however you're going to play the backing track. Let's just kind of get these scales into your mind before we start working on the phrasing. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is our A minor pentatonic scale. Nothing fancy, just try to get the notes into your mind. So you'll do that for about a minute and then go to your A minor scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Use proper technique. Try to keep your fingers as close to the strings as possible. And get a good tone out of your instrument. And you'll do that for about a minute or two, just to get kind of warmed up before we get into the phrasing techniques over the backing track. And that's where we're going next. And to make sure that the table's been set before moving on, I want you to make sure that you understand all the phrasing techniques that you learned in Intermediate 2. Yes, we are moving into minor keys, but the phrasing techniques can still be used. We're still going to use quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes over the top of this backing track, along with our slurs, legato slide technique, double stop technique, shifting between the scale forms. We even talked about the motif and palm muting technique. So all those things you should be familiar with because we're going to use those. Now, I'm not going to get into great detail. I'll mention what I'm doing as I play over the backing track with you, but I'm not going to go into great detail into how to play those techniques. You should already have those canned and ready to go. And we're going to introduce some new techniques moving forward. Okay, well, it's time to get started. We're going to begin with step number 1. And that's applying the A minor and the A minor pentatonic scale over the new backing track. And you're going to use all those phrasing techniques learned in Intermediate 2. And that would be your quarter, 8, 16th notes, your legato slide technique, your hammer-ons, pull-offs, all those things you're going to apply. Just as you were doing in Intermediate 2, you're now going to put that over the top of your minor and minor pentatonic scales. So it's nothing new, it's just a different perspective. Okay, we've hired our musicians, and it's time to work on our phrasing. We're going to keep it simple at the start. We're going to work with our A minor pentatonic scale and our A minor scale using quarters, eighths, and 16th notes. Let's start off with quarter notes on the A minor pentatonic scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now we can throw in some eighth notes. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if we can get some 16th notes. 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now those were pretty fast. If you can't play the 16th notes, that's okay. Just focus on quarters and eighths. But I know there's some of you out there that are probably former shredders in rock and roll or blues or whatever, and you can probably hit some of those fast notes. So I wanted to keep that open for you guys. Okay, now we're going to apply the same rhythms to our A minor scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. These are quarter notes. get really comfortable with the quarters. And once you're comfortable with these, you can then add the eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, the next step is to add 16th notes. For those of you who dare. One, two, three, four, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and a 2 and 3, 4, 1 and a 2 and 3, 4, 1 and a 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and so on. Now once again, if you cannot perform 16th notes at that tempo, that's fine. You can get plenty of gigs off of quarters and eighths. That's just for the people who have the chops and are looking for a challenge. So now we're going to add all of our phrasing techniques, which would be our slurs, our shifting between forms using legato slide technique, and then we're going to be using palm muting technique, the motif. We talked about the motif, and we're going to throw all that stuff and more into our backing track. Now we can apply our phrasing techniques to the rhythm. And so we're going to start off with slur technique, and that's our hammer-ons, our pull-offs, our hammer pulls, and our pull hammers. Here's an example of a hammer-on. And then we have pull-offs. We got hammer pulls, and then pull hammers. You can apply this to both scales, the A minor scale and the A minor pentatonic scale. And then what you just saw there was a legato slide. That's our next phrasing tool. All you're doing, you're just sliding from one note to the next note within the scale, and you can do this with both the A minor scale and the A minor pentatonic scale. Here are some more examples. Very beautiful technique. It's got a vocal quality to it. We can also use the legato slide technique to shift between forms. So for example, we can shift from form 1 of the minor scale into form 2 of the minor scale using the pinky right here. Watch this. See that? I'm in form 2. Back to form 1. And then next we have the motif, a very important phrasing tool. Now the motif is just a repeated phrase or idea throughout the song. So in this piece, you're going to hear this motif that I just repeat over and over again throughout the piece. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. You can put that anywhere you want within this composition. And then later you can develop that. And that's what I did. I kept going back to the same phrase over and over again. And this does two things. One, it sounds really good. Your audience will connect with that melody, and it'll stick in their minds. Two, it gives you time to think. So as you're playing that same phrase, you're thinking about the next phrase you want to do. So I want you to take advantage of motifs throughout this piece. You can also apply palm muting technique. If you're using a pick, we've already learned how to do this in levels. You just put your palm up against the strings, and then you get this muted sound. And then for those of us who are using fingerstyle, same thing. It's called Sacado Technique in flamenco and classical circles. So you put your palm not on the bridge, but just a little bit in front of the bridge so that you're muting the strings slightly. And then you'll have to make adjustments, but you can use your thumb for the pizzicato or for the palm mute. It's a pretty cool technique. You don't want to overuse it, but it's good to practice using your palm mute, with or without the pick. Step number 2, we're going to apply free and rest stroke technique over the backing track. And that was covered back in level 205. Now this is a new technique, so if you are not an experienced flamenco or classical guitarist, you may want to slow down the note values. I would stick with quarter and eighth notes until you can get this up to speed. And down the road, this will become a very quick technique. I decided to go with this phrasing technique because, well, we're playing in a Cuban, Spanishy, Mexican type style of music. And so this sounds really good using index and middle on a nylon-based guitar, or a classical or flamenco guitar. And so that's why I've incorporated that into this backing track. Now don't forget to use a pick also. Those styles are also played using a pick. So you want to go back and forth between using a pick as well as finger style to develop your technique. And now for our newest technique, and that's called free stroke technique. We learned this back in level 205. Now, for those of you who've never practiced using index and middle, it's a good idea to start very slow. So I would just stick to quarters with the occasional eighth note and do a lot of single notes. Single notes can sound really good in a guitar solo. So for example, those are all single notes. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. And then you can graduate to keeping it on one string. Once you get good at that, you can go into multiple strings. And then you can apply your other phrasing tools that you've learned, like hammer-ons and pull-offs. Then your legato slides. All those phrasing tools are going to affect the way you play. It affects your coordination. So it's just best to start off slow, use quarters. Introduce eighths. And then your phrasing tools. And in the beginning, keep it with 1 or 2 strings, and then gradually expand the amount of strings that you use within your guitar solo. And the same can be said with forms. Stay in a single form, like form 1, and then graduate later on into upper forms, into form 2. Don't try to take on too much. Don't take on too many strings at one time. And don't take on too many forms at one time. You graduate into those forms.